Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for December 18th through 24th. This week I read 3 books, I watched 1 show, I watched 1 movie, and I listened to 1 book. Merry Christmas to anyone who celebrates it. Happy birthday to my friends that actually have birthdays today. And in my hemisphere, we are past the darkest day of the year, so I'm celebrating that personally. The first of the books I read with my eyeballs is the last book I needed to read to finish the 12 challenge, and that's How Story Works. This book is exactly what it says on the tin. It talks about all the different components of creating stories, no matter what medium you're creating them in, and it discusses the importance of each, and it gives you some tips and tricks as to the different ways that people have used the building blocks to create story before, but definitely stresses there is no one way to create a story. This was very short and to the point, but also had some excellent examples within it, and then also talked about different media that I absolutely love and gave examples of what it was doing at certain points, which was very neat to see. And if I ever get around to creating another story again, I think I'm going to refer back to this so I can make sure I've got all my ducks in a row. Next, the first book that I picked up from BookBox Canada 2022 December horror box is Infested. In this book, we're following a woman named Olivia who wakes up on her bedroom floor. She's clearly been sick. She doesn't really know what's going on. It's night, it's dark, her husband isn't there, and when she tries to turn on the lights, they won't turn on. She only had 1 drink last night, so why did she wake up in a pile of vomit? And as she ventures out into her apartment building, horrors abound. This one went in some very strange directions that I definitely didn't see coming, and one of the things that I really enjoyed about it is we got a lot of answers to questions even though we were primarily in her point of view. Like, there are certain things the reader came to understand that the character didn't know because we got a couple of chapters outside of her point of view, and it was just good to get those answers but not actually be told what exactly was happening until the character found out about it, if that makes any sense. If you read the book, it makes sense. Essentially, about 6 months previously, her and her husband moved to this building because based on something from his job, they can live there for a year rent-free. And because they only have 1 car, that means that she had to quit her job, but he's still working, commuting, and going back and forth to the city, which is like an hour commute. So she's basically been isolated here. She can't call for help because it's a wireless building, so if the power is off, that means that nobody has internet, and also none of their phones seem to work, so they can't seem to call somebody. Nobody can just hear them from where they are because they are in a very isolated location. It is a very action-packed book, but it definitely balances that with flashbacks from her past that gave interesting context to what's going on at this point. And then it goes into some ridiculous plot points that you're just like, but why would anyone think this is a good idea? I very much enjoyed it, and I'm very much looking forward to reading the rest of the books that I got in that box. If you didn't see it, I did a whole unboxing for that book box, so I'll be sure to link that down below. I spent most of yesterday finishing reading Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. I had only started it the night before, and I was absolutely hooked on it. In this book, we have a woman named Paris. She wakes up and her husband is dead, and obviously people think that she did it. Because firstly, we always look at the spouse or the people closest to the deceased first, and then secondly, she's standing in the bathroom with a straight razor. He died of exsanguination in the bathtub. 1 + 1 is 2 usually. However, we become teased with the fact that this is not the first time she's been around a dead body, and how if that comes to light, that could seriously hurt her defense. This one had a lot of parts to it and a lot of twists and turns, and what I really enjoyed is there was a certain section where I was like, okay, I completely know where this twist is going to go. But then there were a couple twists that made me think I was wrong, and then several twists after that, so I did not know where this was going. I did not know how this was going to end. I was actually sitting there reading it at the dinner table, and people were talking just because that's what you do, and I had to like leave the room and come downstairs because I was like, I have 3 pages left and I need to know what happens, and I need nobody to be talking so I can read. I enjoyed that we got her perspective. We also got the perspective of a guy named Drew who runs a podcast called Things We Do in the Dark. It's a very popular true crime podcast, and one of the first true crimes that he was ever really invested in is this woman that killed her lover, and she's getting out of jail, and he is so mad about it because she should never get out of jail for what she did. And of course, the lives of these characters definitely intertwine in very fun and fascinating ways. This book has a lot of things: fame unfortunate identity and blackmail, and it was just so good. If you're looking for a mystery thriller and you haven't picked this one up, I highly suggest it. Onto the show I watched this week. I caught up on last week's episode and then watched the finale episode of Canada's Drag Race Canada vs. the World. Last week's episode was a comedy episode, so obviously my fave did really well in it, and in this week my fave actually went out in the first round of the lip sync Lollapalooza SmackDown for the Crown, or whatever the hell they call it this season, which is unfortunate. However, I did very much enjoy seeing that she took that opportunity to do a certain thing that has a great impact on her personal life. If you haven't seen it yet, I don't want to wreck it for you, but then as soon as the episode was over, I then had to go to her Instagram to see how that situation played out. So that's nice and vague enough that if you don't know what I'm talking about, it shouldn't wreck anything for you, but if you have seen it, I was very happy with how it played out. Yeah. Also, I was decently happy with who won, but I obviously had somebody else in mind for the crown, but you know, I don't make the rules, I don't make the decisions. Last night, Chad and I watched Glass Onion, which was a lot of fun. This is made by the same people that made Knives Out, so it's full of a bunch of celebrities, and it's a murder mystery thing. Daniel Craig pretends he's from the Bayou, and he's got a big accent, and he's like the world's premier detective. This one was interesting because 5 different people who were friends of this billionaire got this box, which was basically an invitation to his private island somewhere in Greece for this murder mystery weekend where they were going to have to try to solve his murder. And it's supposed to be fun or whatever, but somehow along the way our detective gets invited as well. Nobody really knows how he ended up there. And then when things start to go down, he's there to observe and kind of figure out what's going on. One of the things I really liked about this movie is you get about halfway through and then you do a go back to the beginning and see something the audience doesn't know, and that fills things out and it fills in different gaps of what you saw before, and I really liked seeing that happening. This honestly ended up being a lot of fun and I very much enjoyed this. The book that I finally finished listening to this week was Jade City. This is a book that I've had out from the library as an audiobook, I believe 3 separate times, starting when we were in the Northwest Territories. And it kept getting to the point where it needed to be returned. We went back on the holds list, we got it again. Since I was listening to it with Chad, we did have to listen to it at 1x speed, and because we would only listen to it in the car, it obviously took a while. Also, neither of us was super interested in it. I think we were looking for a little more magic and a little more martial arts, because that's basically what the blurb tells you it's going to be, and it's more of a, here are 2 different political parties and this is how they are structured and we're gonna fight over things, and that's not really our jam. I can totally understand why other people would enjoy this, but it's just not something that is personally to my taste, and that's completely fine. I was very glad that this came in because originally the hold said I wasn't going to get it until January, which means I wouldn't have been able to finish it for the 12 challenge, but I was able to do that at least, so that worked out for me. Also, if you haven't seen my 12 challenge video, I did vlog through the entire year when I was reading the 12 books that were picked for me, so I will link that down below because I'm pretty proud of the organizational skills it took to remember to get all of that footage, keep it in one place, and then put it together when I was done. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Happy holidays!